Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again, and we've now gotten the full reveal for Lucilla, another character arriving in version 3.4 alongside, well, you can kind of already see what's going on over here, the Cyberpunk collab units. Yeah, we've gotten the full details when it comes to Lucilla, her weapon type, and of course, her attribute. And today we're going to do a bit of a discussion surrounding just how free-to-play friendly she might be, whether or not the unit is a bait, and of course, what information we can derive from how her kit is probably going to work based off of the existing Sonata sets that should be for her that have already been added to the game. Because her being Glacio is big. Her being a rectifier is also big as well when it comes to the free-to-play conversation. And, well, the Sonata sets that we already have in game so far, they pretty much give us a clear identity of what role she's probably going to be playing on the battlefield. So without further ado, let's go ahead, let's start breaking it all down, starting off with the whole Glacio attribute part first. Lucilla over here is pretty obviously one of the most non-DPS units we've ever had added to the game. If you've seen anything when it comes to like how this character works in the story, what her actual forte is, the ability to kind of like touch objects, regain memories, do like all of that shit, materialize them, all of that, she doesn't really seem like a character that's on the front lines dealing a ton of damage. And, well, with her being Glacio and another Glacio set we've added in the game, and the fact that she's basically tied to the hip to Hiyuki in the story, most people are probably getting the, pretty obvious take over here that she's going to be the secondary user of Wishes of Quiet Snowfall, Hiyuki's signature set. If you've been paying attention to this set, though, you would realize it has a secondary effect. Inflicting Glacio Chafe on enemies increases Glacio damage dealt by 10% for 15 seconds, and then the Resonator gains Snowfall for 15 seconds. And so why don't you go ahead and read what Snowfall does? The first part increases your crit damage if you deal liberation damage. That's all Hiyuki. She does that almost instantly in her rotation and then refreshes it too. The second one is that using an outro skill removes Snowfall and grants a 25% Glacio damage bonus to the incoming Resonator for 15 seconds. And only one Snowfall effect can be activated. Pretty much at a baseline, what you might expect is that Hiyuki will deal no liberation damage at all, and she'll also apply Glacio Chafe to enemies. I think that is what everyone's kind of getting the impression of over here, because it's not like out of line at all, right? Like, just listen to this a little bit. Yeah, that's like real and like photo shots and stuff like that. So like, you know, what do photos do? They freeze a moment in time. So it's like her applied the Glacio debuff, Glacio Chafe with her photos, right? It kind of, you get what I'm talking about over here, right? That's like, you know, everyone... I'm gonna stop talking about that. Anyways, it thematically does make a decent amount of sense. I don't think anyone can be like, oh, like, I definitely didn't see Glacio coming. But this is another thing that's very, very, very clear when it comes to Glacio. Yes, it looks like the synergy is going to be there with the new Sonata set that got added to the game. But, like, bro, Glacio is in one of the, like, worst spots roster-wise that anyone could ever imagine. She comes in as the Glacio Chafe DPS, great, but the only other two Glacio units we have in the game, bro, are Carlotta and G-Jaw, who are already sort of like tied to the hip to each other. So don't be out here expecting any sort of like insane synergies with like Chakota being usable in like half the arrow teams in the game, or Lupa creating her own like mono-fusion archetype. We've got none of that when it comes to Glacio currently in the game, bro. It's like being Glacio, I'm just gonna be honest, it's a bit of a debuff, because that means that none of those kind of like synergies that exist for other attributes are gonna have anything at all to do with Lucilla. So that's another thing to keep in mind. This ain't like something, being Glacio isn't really something to like celebrate at the moment. It's something to deal with as a new addition to the roster. Now, though, we have to have another conversation, and that's on the secondary role that Lucilla is, I would say, pretty much guaranteed to play based off the fact that we have this neat little thing called the resonance system in this game. So, as we all know, resonance modes are the ability for a character, specifically 5-star ones, to be able to change what their kit actually does with the simple click of a button. And the end result is that characters can oftentimes play multiple roles across multiple teams based off of which mode they're in. And I'm of the honest opinion that Lucilla's probably going to have a Glacio Chafe mode, but then she's also going to have a Tune mode. Where does Tune Rupture and Tune Strain originate from? Star Torch Academy, Lahai Roy, right? She is the president, the head mistress of Star Torch Academy. She's also Hiyuki's, like, right-hand woman or whatever the fuck they got going on, right? It makes sense for her to support Hiyuki and then also support Tune archetypes on the side. And, well, a new Sonata set that got added to the game, this update, basically kind of entails what her secondary role is going to be. Because this thing is called, just read it, it's called Reel of Spliced Memories. Lucilla is a master of memory regression who can extract and materialize memories. If that's not enough for you guys, and the fact that, you know, like film reel, oh my god, like, and the fact that like film reel and stuff like that is what shows up at the beginning of this thing, it's kind of like obvious what's happening over here, right? I shouldn't need to spell it out for you. This set requires you to be able to inflict Tune Rupture or Tune Strain shifting to the enemies. And when you do, you increase the Tune Break boost of Resonators in the team by 20 for 30 seconds. This is where I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with what Lucilla's kit is actually going to do. Because this is possibly one of the worst Sonata sets in the game. Bro, this does, like, kind of almost fucking nothing. 20 Tune Break boost is one of the fakest stat boosts I've ever seen in the history of the goddamn game. What do you mean 20? Because you want to know what Lahai Roy characters have for Tune Break boost at a baseline? Bro, you just, like, load them up, and they start off with 10. Non-Lahai Roy units have 0 when it comes to their Tune Break boost. And so at a baseline, Lucilla's set, Reel of Spliced Memories, is increasing the baseline 10 that units have up to 30. Which is, like, not really that good. It's pretty fucking bad if people are gonna be honest. Because we've also got another character who just directly buffs Tune Break boost to the entire team with their kit. It's called Lene. We all know that big attack visual impact that she does, right? It's the hardest hitting move in her kit. Visual impact, ladies and gentlemen, gives her entire team 40. So Lene, just doing her regular rotation, gives the entire team 40 Tune Break boost. And this fucking set that, again, should be for Lucilla, bro, that thing gives 20. It's just interesting, right? It's just interesting. However, this is also an effect of this set. This set functions almost identically to a healer set, where you don't need to be on field. The effect lasts for a very, very, very long time, and it only kind of needs to be activated once, and it stacks with all of the other buffs that somebody is going to have. Rejuvenating Glow, for example, right? Healing increases the attack of all people on the team by 15% for 30 seconds. Doesn't expire on outro, moves to any other teammate that you want seamlessly. And then Reel of Spliced Memories over here kind of does the same thing, except with inflicting Tune Rupture or Tune Strain, and then the effect also lasts for 30 seconds, doesn't expire on swap, any of that. Basically, what I'm trying to get at over here is that I think that Tune Lucilla has to be kind of strong kit-wise. Her kit has to do a lot because that Sonata set doesn't fucking do anything. Much like how a person who uses Rejuvenating Glow, their kit kind of has to do a lot, right? Because just giving 15% attack to the entire team is kind of a shit buff. Like, objectively, it's not that great of a buff. And so healer kits end up having a fuck ton of other things built into them to make it so that running this set, you don't feel like you're running an underpowered unit. This is, without a doubt, an underpowered Sonata set. This thing is not strong. You don't look at this and you're like, oh boy, this is the best shit ever. Oh, this is a must slot. people were looking at this shit when it got introduced, boys, and they were like, hey, wait, is this a bug? Is there a typo? Did they input the effect of this properly because it does so little, and it's half of what Lene has baseline in her kit? That's why I'm thinking Lucilla, for her to like actually not feel underwhelming outside of her Glacio Che form, I think she kind of has to either have insane buffs to Tomb Break, or, and I think this is going to be a big one, she has the ability to heal. I would like there to be like a side grade or like a different kind of like support you could run in the Toon teams that are maybe a bit more offensively focused. Mornier, for example, right, does have some good offensive bugs for Toon, but she kind of focuses on like that interruption resistance and off-Toon buildup rate, right? What if Lucilla's all about just like Toon break damage as opposed to like off-Toon buildup, that sort of stuff? And so if she heals, then suddenly this set makes like a lot more sense, because now you can run her in like the healer slot, then run a more offensive Toon break support like Lene or possibly Denya in the second slot, and then your DPS like your Luke or your Imeth in the third. That would be cool. I'd be interested in seeing that. Because right now, why the fuck would you use her? Why the fuck would you use Lucilla? Just reading this over Lene. Do you already see why I'm asking that question? Because Lene's set gives 30% attack, and then she gives 40 Tomb Break boost for existing. That's kind of just like better than what you're seeing with Lucilla stuff going on. And do you want Lucilla to just feel like a Walmart version of Lene? Probably not. Yeah, probably not, but that's currently what she's shaping up to be. But I don't think Kuro's gonna intentionally grief. I don't think Kuro's going to go ahead and intentionally just like fuck over one of their highly anticipated releases like this. So I think she's just going to be a really, really, really strong support. And naturally, when it comes to Glacio Chafe and the archetype that she has over there, I'm sure she's going to be just fantastic. I'm sure she's going to be strong. I don't think there are going to need to be any sort of like worries about that. But the realist splice memory version, yeah, jury is still out on that one. So do keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. I would really hesitate on whether or not you're deciding to save up for her until you get some future kit details about what she actually does. Because it seems like a lot of the niches that she's attempting to fill in on the roster, it feels like they're already filled in by other existing characters outside of Glacio Chafe. And so if you need a support for Hiyuki, she's probably going to be good. But if you don't have Hiyuki, or you don't want Hiyuki, or you don't feel like that, you don't feel the need to get more Glacio Chafe for Hiyuki, then maybe wait a pretty good while to see how her kit actually works. So yeah, a little bit questionable over here. We'll have to see. Now it's time for us to have a bit of a conversation. Now that we talked about her kit and her potential role in game, we got to talk about the weapons, the rectifier. And this is what I'll say at a baseline when it comes to rectifiers in this game, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bit of a debuff to be a rectifier user. And the reason for that is very, very, very simple. You don't have a lot of like solid weapons to choose from unless you pull on the limited roster. And the kind of like best general, like sub DPS rectifiers that we've had in the game, yeah, this thing doesn't run anymore. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be sorry. Yeah, the best one we all know is String Master. Best general use case one, but I think the last time this ran was over a year ago. And the reason why having a String Master, or maybe even like a Lethian Elegy, right, for general use cases is good, is because the standard rectifiers are like really fucking bad. Like, bro, they are some steaming dog shit. Cosmic Ripples is like the biggest joke in standard weapon history. And then, instead of releasing, like, a crit rectifier that was a bit more general use case that people could use in 3.0, bro, they added the Bowsawed Astro Lobby. What the fuck even is this thing? Dude, this thing is arguably worse than Cosmic Ripples. That's the part that I feel like just fucked with everyone. All the other standard weapons that got added, right? They were, like, good. They give, like, crit and attack. Bro, like, this, why did pistols need an even better one? And the only other weapon type that got fucked over was the sword, because they got laser shear. But that one doesn't matter because you already had EOG for crit and general stat buffs. Like, even Broadblade's got a fucking crit weapon too. The only standard weapon type that has no crit and like the most dog shit effects is easily rectifiers. And so to get any crit at all, you either need a BP weapon, which is not recommended, or one of the other the other like 5 goddamn limited rectifiers. That's like it, bro. But this is the thing, we don't know what she scales off of. One of the things about standard weapons in this game is that they're all designed for a specific type of character. Like there's meant to be a user of every standard weapon. And as far as I'm concerned, we have not found a user for this fucking one. Bro, what is this thing? ER main stat? Attack buff? After a resonator in the team uses a Tomb Break skill, it grants a 12% attack increase and basic attack damage bonus to the wielder? Hey, I could see Lucilla scaling off of ER and then also doing basic attack damage. Yo, that might actually be the case. Who knows? Maybe this is for Denya. But I could definitely see this one at the very least being for Lucilla, and then she has like some ER scaling in her kit. Cause like, why would they even release this piece of shit? Why would they release this thing? Otherwise, it's not designed for any other character in the fucking game. Cosmic Ripples, at the very least, it works with Encore's kit. Cause she can use all the stats on here, even though Encore would prefer crit. This is made for nobody. Hey, yo, yeah, like, break this thing down, turn it into a sword, and then Brant can use it. That's fair. But as a rectifier, no, this is a piece of garbage. It's clearly designed for a future unit, not anyone that exists on the roster. And Lucilla or Denya, it might be for one of them. And I'm just personally of the opinion, yeah, with a stat blend that looks like this, who is supposed to know what the fuck this thing is supposed to do anyways? I'm praying that this is simply the free-to-play option for Lucilla, and you don't gotta look much further than here. Because one thing that is not debatable at all when it comes to rectifiers is that their damage types are kind of just constrained between two things. Resonance skill damage and basic attack damage. That's, like, kind of it. With Phoebe Sig giving a little bit of heavy if you can apply Frazzle, but this thing just doesn't really count at this point. And so, Liberation doesn't really make sense. But if Lucilla's like heavy attack, yeah, she's fucked. You're gonna want her get her Sig. But if she's more so focused on basic, then yeah, you might be a little bit more set with some of the other existing options. But yeah, it's not looking good on the 5-star rectifier side. I'm just gonna be 100% realistic with you. It's not looking good at all, and the selection looks like some steaming shit. There is, however, an argument that you might be able to make for Waltz in Masquerade if she's going to be on a team with Hiyuki, because this thing kind of like, bro, it gives like 32% attack. I know the base stats aren't the most amazing thing ever, but like, yeah, it gives 32% attack, which should be really easy to stack up in negative status lineups. This might be the one time that I actually do recommend potentially looking into 4-star options. That's just because the existing 5-star ones can be really bad, and for the general weapons, you just might not have been able to pull them because the last time this thing fucking ran was a year ago. The weapon situation for a rectifier user, not good at all. You should be blessed. You should be feeling happy that the 2 Cyberpunk characters use pistols, because holy fuck, pistols are so good. Pistols are amazing in Wuthering Waves. Being a pistol user is one of the biggest buffs you can have because the standard weapon options are ridiculous. Exact opposite case that's happening over here. So as a whole, Kuro Games kind of is making it look like Lucilla is one of the most skippable characters ever. Her buffs from her Sonata set don't look very good. Her role as a Glacio Chafe sub DPS is highly, highly limited. If you don't have Hiyuki, she's probably just 100% skip at a baseline. And depending on how strong she is in her more like secondary support role for Toon, that's really gonna, I think, make or break whether or not she's worth pulling. I feel like both of her modes have to be good. Because if her secondary form, where she supports Toon on Realist Splice Memories, is kind of just like mid, bro, I might just recommend skipping her altogether. Because this is sort of the thing. I think a lot of us are scarred especially if we are a, let's just be honest here, right? A Cartithia owner and a Zoni owner. And we happen to have, let's just say, a Confession Mode Phoebe or a Chakona that sees no use on our account, right? There's a fair number of you guys out there that pulled these units just to work with one other unit, and then you haven't really built out your roster in a way to make any further use out of these two units. You're fucked when it comes to Phoebe. There's nothing you can do to have her work with anybody else. Now, your shit is cooked. But Chakona's not as bad because you can build a bunch of arrow teams, but that involves you using Yuno and like Chuyon and Gion. And if you don't want to do that, yeah, you probably don't want to do that. So yeah, she's only good with a bunch of other dudes, which is a little bit questionable in the first place. Otherwise, she's kind of tied to the hip to Cartithia. And then she's only good with Zani. And if you end up pulling Lucilla with no use for her second form, and all she is just like a Hiyuki slave, that doesn't feel like that great of a use of a 5-star pull. Let's be honest here. It doesn't feel that beneficial. It doesn't feel like it's that much of like a add to your account when that's the only thing that she's going to be doing is supporting Hiyuki and nothing else. And so I like the idea of dual resonance forms. I feel like I feel like Lucilla at a baseline needs to have the dual resonance forms. And I just hope that her Tomb Break one is, like, actually decent. Because otherwise, yeah, bro. I can see this unit being a dead end for a lot of potential accounts. And I'm just hoping they make her, honestly, as good of a pull as Lene. But when one of her forms looks like it's going to be tailored to just one unit, a bit like Denya, I hope that other form is really good. That's going to be my little forewarning over here about Lucilla. Just knowing that there's a lot of other stuff in the update that you might be wanting to spend your resources on instead. Because as far as I'm concerned, Hiyuki seems to be doing just a fine job without her. And Hiyuki might be doing a finer job with her. But is it a job that's worth that many pulls? Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.